start of field tape number 7. It's October 23rd, 2000. We're just rounding the distal end of Lighthouse Beach at the mouth of Pictou Harbour. You can get a good view there at the back of the barrier looking at Moody Cove, and then across to Moody Point, where there's a small flanking spit extending along its northern edge.
As we come up onto Moody Point and move into Pictou Harbour, you can see the relief has increased slightly, about 10 meters. There's some old wooden piles that's sticking offshore and a beach that's developing behind it. In fact, there's several shoals and wharves that extend offshore along here that have probably constrained the sediment transport. And because the beach between them is not that well developed, it's a low erosional scarp and a narrow sand and mixed sediment beach.
As we approach a long, narrow promontory that sticks out in Pictou Harbour, you just come into view. The beach is much wider on the north side of it. There's a wharf, some boats and storage sheds on the top of the beach, and then on the south side there's some riprap protecting it. A little bit better beach development exposed to down the length of the harbor, and then the beach development decreases and there's an erosional scarp at the back. The elevations are pretty close to 15 meters.
Coming up to Christie Point and Muscle Point. You can see the low gradient beaches. You can see there's a lot of bedrock exposed in the foreshore. Sand caught between the boulder outcrops, and then in the upper intertidal is a mixed sediment that varies between the bedrock and boulder outcrops and sand and mud. And then the backshore is erosional scarp, which is for the most part bush or tree, so it must be partially stabilized. Coming into Grotto's Cove now. The Grotto's Cove is a very low wave energy environment. It's a very low sloping beach, mud flat, some bedrock outcrop. The upper intertidal or high tide area is more mixed coarse cobble boulder. See some mooring, some of the boats. The foreground moored, and then the backshore is a low erosional scarp. Coming up on Indian Cross Point. Again, a fairly extensive, I believe, bedrock controlled point. Sort of vegetation caught behind it, and seaward of it there's more of a well-defined sand beach. These inner shores leading towards Trenton are again poorly defined beach, vegetated on the upper part, a fair bit of pocket marsh, like around this corner you're just seeing come into view now, with a little pond in behind it. And it's quite shallow up in the embayments. We see the main channel seems to go right down the center of the river, Pictou River, Pictou Harbour. The back shore is a low erosional scarp in places, but mostly vegetated. As we approach Pine Point, which is sort of a promontory that sticks out into the embayment, it's probably glacial dominated. There's a bit more relief, erosional scarp in the backshore, and there's foreshore is low gradient mud and sand, I believe.
Looking across from Pine Point, there's a large embayment. Doesn't have a name on it, but the Clish Brook empties into it. The island in the middle is called Big Spoon Island, and you can see the narrow gut that leads into the embayment. Most of the shorelines are fairly low-lying. A lot of them are vegetated. Not much beach development. And as you come around the Greens Point, you can see there's much more mixed sediment along the beach. There's a good view of Trenton and the big power plant, and where the river narrows as you head towards Trenton and New Glasgow. Looking down at Greens Point, we're getting more residential and industrial development. A lot of the scarps along the back shore are vegetated and stabilized, but just in this area and the next section, there's some erosional scarp. The elevation is probably 5 to 10 meters, and beach development is again still very poor. There's a fairly wide, moderately wide intertidal zone, mixed sediment. And then looking along Greens Point in towards Hillside, there's much more marsh and wetland vegetation in this embayment, and a lot more sedimentation. A lot of sediment seems to be accumulating. There's a lot of shoal areas, and then we're just going to swing around from Hillside and look back up towards the mouth of Pictou Harbour, and then back towards the power plant before we head upstream towards Trenton and New Glasgow. There's a good view of the channels looking up the harbour, the main highway cutting across by the power plant, and the constriction and some of the artificial shoreline, small Raspberry Island with the wetland vegetation. And as we come across into the industrial area of Trenton and New Glasgow, you see that a lot of the shores are artificial. They're constrained by either walls or fill. You can see just past the power plant here, there's a lot of infilling going on even today from the various industrial activities that have gone on. There is some wetland vegetation. I think this is Shipyard Point coming up, which may tell us something about the past. You can see some graders in there pushing out material. Looks like slag or deposits that have been left over from the industrial period. Looking down at the river, it's pretty shallow, and then as we head towards Trenton, you can see there's more of a natural shore, but a lot of it has been modified or has been modified in the past.
Just going by Trenton, probably the rail works. Trenton actually was a real steel town, and it was one of the first places where steel pellets were made in Canada back in 1883 by this steel and coal company. As we go along the river, the shoreline itself is there's a bit of a beach, but the main channel is on the far side that we're looking right now, and following the sort of east side of the river. There's a vegetated backshore, treed or bushed. Often there's municipal works along it, such as this gravel crushing plant. There's a bit of a low tide flats along parts of the shoreline, and then there's wharf structures at the main bridge that cuts across the Trenton. Actually, we're up to Glasgow now. This section of shoreline has more marsh, where the river used to meander around the shoreline. You come up to the railway bridge at Lourdes, well, just before Lourdes, I guess. There's more intertidal flats and marshland behind landward of it. And then we'll approach the Trans-Canada Highway, head into Stellarton. A very extensive marsh between just north and the Trans-Canada Highway. There's very large tidal creeks entering into the main river or harbor system. Just coming up on the Trans-Canada Highway now. And we'll just follow the river all the way along, trying to get a picture of the shoreline. It sort of bifurcates here, so we'll get sort of the east side on the way down and the west side on the way back.
Looking down in the Plymouth area, those blue buildings, I believe, are part of the old Westray mine where the explosion and the disaster was in 1992. So the old railway bridge crossing the river, and we're just pretty well at the landward extent of any marine or tidal influence on the Pictou River. We're going to be circling around here. You can see much better farmland adjacent to the river, and we'll be heading back up the East Pictou River towards Stellarton and Trenton.
We're into Stellarton now, and we're just pretty well at the end of the seaward extent of Pictou Harbour area, and we'll just circle around and then head back up. As we leave Stellarton, you can see the mid-river channel area, quite a large wetland. This is where the river bifurcates before it hits Pictou Harbour. And there's very little beach development per se. And in the background, you'll see in a minute the Trans-Canada Highway. Just going over the Trans-Canada Highway now. We're flying at about 700 feet and about 80 miles per hour. There's the large marsh development build-up that you see between the Trans-Canada Highway and the old railway bridge, or actually the railway bridge. crossing the railway bridge now. There's extensive flats in the next section of the channel. In the mid part, you can just see them now. But on either side, there's, at least on the west side, there's a fair relief. Just going over the town of New Glasgow right now, and it'll be approaching Trenton. Just as you approach the corner of the river here, there's a weir-like structure. I don't know what's going, whether they have aquaculture there or whether they're trying to catch fish coming upstream. And then beyond that is the fairly large meander in the river. Then you get deposition on the west side and the meanders on the east side. As we come back into the Charlton Cove area, there's a more extensive marsh and mud flats, and they're just in sort of the landward of the narrow channel by the power plant. We're just going to break for fuel and head over to the Trenton Airport. And we're just passing the power plant. We just passed the road just north of the power plant. And we're heading out along East River Pictou towards Abercrombie Point. Much of the shoreline is low wave energy environment. It's vegetated, fairly extensive marsh at the head. There's quite a bit of shoal water in front of it as well. The whole area is fairly shallow, and the beach itself is poorly developed but vegetated. A few places where there's residences, as we just saw here, the beach has been cleared and it's a little bit better developed, and the vegetation is actually in the lower intertidal. Coming around the corner towards Dunbar Point, shoal water in the near shore, very shallow. As a matter of fact, the main channel in the Trenton is out in the middle of the harbour. The shoreline itself is mostly marsh, vegetated. However, up at Dunbar Point, which is in a promontory that extends offshore, I'm not sure if it's artificial or natural. It could be leftover from an old headland. It has a better developed beach, sort of a bit of a washover at high tide in the middle of it. It's pebble cobble, some sand and mud in the lower intertidal. And there's a couple perpendicular or sharp-angled ridges off it. They too don't look natural. Like there's probably some sort of structure along here originally. Going out towards the Scott, I think it used to be the Scott paper plant at Abercrombie Point. There's more housing and riprap and artificial shoreline along this part. See different varieties of seawalls and structures put in front of the houses.
Just looking down, it's very low-lying shore. There's an extensive shoal just offshore. There's fewer dwellings or residences along this part of the shore. The intertidal zone is not as wide. There's a bit of a scarp behind it. And we're just starting to pick up some of the effluent from the plant, the Scottsboro plant. And in behind, you can see there's a beach or spit that's developed, enclosing a wetland and pond environment. And here the intertidal begins to widen.
It's going by Abercrombie Point. A much wider, extensive lower intertidal area. It's very shallow, just offshore. The upper intertidal is a mixture of coarse material and fines. Then we'll go across the causeway and the fish bridge. You're looking at usually a lot of cormorants along the causeway here. Our time is 16:54. We're just after low tide, which is I think 16:30 UTC time. We cross over the causeway. We'll go across the front of the middle part of Pictou Harbour, and then over to the other branch, the western branch of Pictou Harbour. Mostly along this shore is the main highway, and so a lot of it's artificial. You've got mainly cobble, boulder. A lot of it's artificial from the road. Some of it might be natural. There's a lot of driftwood deposits along the base of it. As you get out to the point, the natural sort of foreland at the end. It has more of a mixed sediment beach. The back shore is a low bank, vegetated.
Passing the foreland, you can see much more natural shoreline. But we're going to go along the dammed off part of Middle River, Middle River. Again, there's more natural shore at this part, and then as we go across the dam, you'll see on the far side there is a sluiceway and a fish ladder that connects the inner river to the outer harbor.
A bit of beach in front of the marsh. Looks predominantly sandy, a little bit of fine pebble with some dune grass in the back shore. Go by this small island, Loch Broom Islet. There's a lot of bird life around it. It's a fairly coarse lag on the shoreline, and there's quite an extensive spit out the back on the landward side of it. This must be the old railway or road crossing. It goes across, well, it's a lift bridge, I guess, the railway crossing. That went across the Pictou from Loch Broom. And behind it, you can see there's a much better developed beach built by the local winds just in the harbor. And heading south into the west arm of Pictou Harbour towards Durham. This shoreline is much better beach development. It's a mixed sediment in the beach. It looks anywhere from mud to cobble size. Coming up to Lang Point. We haven't seen it yet, but hold on. There we got Lang Point in there now. It looks like a bit of a bedrock. Looks like bedrock on the end of it. Coarse. Well, maybe it's just boulder, not bedrock. Anyway, there's a coarse material on the end of it, and it gets finer, progressively finer around the corner to the marsh deposits. Sorry, no, we go further. We go to the next bit. We're going across the first main road that crosses this arm of the harbor. The shoreline, a little bit more relief. Artificial riprap along this portion. As you get in there, you see collection of driftwood. There's an accumulation point near Pocket Beach. And
heading farther upstream, you can see the river meanders. There's erosion on the one side, deposition on the other. Extensive areas of islands with wetland vegetation that have been built up over time. And I believe this is mostly freshwater, although the saltwater wedge is supposed to extend as far upriver as the bridge at Durham. There you can see a sharp cut in the by the river.
we're going down just about approaching Durham, and we'll go down just past the bridge in Durham. Most of the water course is a little bit of relief to it. Varies from less than a meter to maybe 3 or 4. It's coming up to the bridge in Durham now. Time is 17:02. Most of the bedrock in this area is carboniferous sandstone, siltstones, probably the Riversdale group or age.
And we'll just circle around and head back towards the mouth of Pictou Harbour. And as we circle around, you get another good view of the bridge at Durham and the little town.